Well, welcome everyone to Plant Profits. I am Vern Davis. I am your host of Plant Profits, and Plant Profits is brought to you by Produce Global. My guest today runs a social equity cannabis brand. That's a lot. Providing customers alternative products to deal with challenges and stress of everyday life. My guest today, and I want you all to welcome to Plant Profits, Tiana Woodruff, CEO and founder of award-winning brand Queen Mary. Tiana, how are you?
Hi, good morning. How are you? I am so honored to be here, happy to be a guest, and thank you so much for that wonderful intro.
Ah, it was true, succinct, and sweet, right? There you go.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, we've as you know, I've been trying to get you here
Yep,
on our show because I'm really I obviously I'm aware of your story some, and I want others to be aware because I think you've set a blueprint on how to get some of these things done that are very, very difficult and expensive to get done. But you also blueprinted a journey that won't be the same for everyone, but I'm sure the level of difficulty is about the same for everybody. Is the road may be a little different, but there'll always be those turns. You go down those dark alleys and you just don't know what's going to happen next, right?
absolutely. You really don't. It's the Wild West out here in cannabis. And it's, I mean, it really is. I mean, you go, there's certain states that, are writing policy as they're allowing licenses, like even here in Los Angeles, we have consumption lounge opening, but we really don't have rules for them yet. And just different things, it's
Exactly.
crazy. It's just people don't understand how hard cannabis really is. They see the green rush and there's this whole like there's so much money in cannabis and it's like no. Are you kidding? Because the government is taxing like there's no other industry, tobacco or alcohol, that gets taxed 46%, basically.
No,
California,
yeah,
we're taxed from seed to sale. There's a cultivation tax for the farmers to the manufacturers pay tax, then the brands, and then the excise tax going on
yeah.
to the distributors, and then the consumers go into a dispensary and they get charged city and state and excise. It's insane how much taxes, really are killing the industry, but there's a lot more to it than just that. But that's a
No, it is. It is, and everyone has a story. And I kind of want to know your story. I mean, I know that you grew up in a very tough part of Los Angeles. Is that
Yes, I was
right?
I was born in Los Angeles, in a
Yeah.
a tougher area. I was born at the Kaiser Permanente Hospital. It's off of like the 405 and Cadillac Avenue.
Yeah, I know
So,
where that is actually. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. That
yes,
that's that that's crazy. Yeah. That's great. So, but as a child, I just want to, as a child, in the environment that is, and you can visualize what that is, right? What was your perception of the plant?
I mean, as a child, I didn't have much of one. Weed
Okay.
was still considered, passe. I mean, my dad was a musician, so obviously he partaked and stuff. And I didn't, as a child, you don't really understand or know. In
Right.
my teen years, a little later, getting to around people that smoked
Yeah.
and kind of I saw it and was kind of, you see, your eyes are open to a lot of things. You see more
Okay.
than just cannabis, obviously, as well. The
Right.
90s and the 80s were very much, especially in a lot of areas, a lot more than cannabis was going on, in the communities. And, we've seen lots of TV shows about how, the crack epidemic and all of
Right.
that happened as well. So, even though cannabis right now is on the forefront, in my early days, that's not what was really, I mean, just say no to drugs was huge, obviously. And we were taught cannabis is the gateway drug. You're going to, smoke cannabis and then have a crack pipe in your hand. But you weren't really taught to fear cannabis as much as you were taught to fear the crack and the
Right.
all the other
Hmm.
stuff was just
Yeah.
so much bigger. Cannabis sort of took a back seat, but it still has a stigma today, despite all of its benefits and all the research that's being done. And you know
Absolutely.
we're just scraping the surface of what cannabis really can be.
No, no, you're absolutely correct, Tiana. We are. And so you mentioned just say no to drugs, and then we had the war on drugs,
Right.
right? Now, tell me about that. You saw that right up front. I mean, you lived in a place where you could see right up front what that was a very, as we know now, that was a very damaging thing.
it was very damaging. And I was one of the few lucky ones, mostly because not to be too much about my personal life, but my parents divorced when I was younger, and my mom, when my dad was in the area, my mom kind of moved away back home, and so it was kind of like a back and forth sort of thing.
Okay.
So, but yes, you did see it. Friends, family, neighbors. You see so many people you knew that were hooked on drugs, and it wasn't
Yeah.
marijuana that was breaking families apart, even though people were being arrested for selling marijuana and making a profit off of it. What
Right.
was really hurting families was the use of really, I don't consider marijuana an illicit drug. So when I say illicit drugs, I'm referring to the crack epidemic and other
Right. Right.
heavy drugs, and seeing needles in alleyways and things like that. As a kid when you're playing,
Yeah.
and it happened everywhere, not just Los Angeles. My husband grew up in Denver, and he'd say the same thing. He lived in Five Points, and he's like, we'd be in the alley as kids, and there would be needles all in
All
the
over.
alley. And,
That's right.
it's something we had to deal with as kids. We throw them aside and you keep playing because, as children, most of us are so naive and just kind of, we just want to play. We don't
Hmm.
want to go home. We want to stay outside with our friends. But you did see the families, and you did have friends that their mother was, or their father was incarcerated, or their mother, was hooked on drugs because the father was incarcerated and she couldn't deal or couldn't afford. And, the projects that there was a lot to see. It was a lesson to be learned, and things, you have to make decisions when you grow up. What is it do you want? Who do you want to be? And are you going to be a
Hmm.
part of that? And, I was fortunate enough to have a mother who made sure that that wasn't my situation. But that isn't the case for most. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. You saw family, friends go
Yes,
through a different
absolutely.
path, or took a
Absolutely.
different path than
And
you
that was
did.
not just in my childhood, that's still today.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
live in Los Angeles, and I had a very dear friend who was a neighbor
Okay.
that had cancer and had battled a cancer, but died of an opioid overdose, because she was addicted to the pain meds from the cancer treatments. So and that just happened a few years ago. So, I mean, it's something that's still very present. I just had my 20-year class reunion, and we lost someone very near and dear, that a fellow cheerleader from my high school, of an
Uh-huh.
opioid addiction. It's around, and it's still around, and it's a real problem.
Yeah. It definitely is. It definitely is. So talk to me about your engagement to the plant, right? Because obviously where you are today, you had to start somewhere,
Yes.
right? So how did how did the plant become something to the point where it would make you say, huh, this is something that I can get into in a very
Right.
passionate, persistent way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I started in the cannabis industry per se. Back in the late 2016, I started as a delivery driver here in Los Angeles, still
A
doing
delivery driver.
a
Yeah.
delivery driver. I delivered
Okay.
for a couple of, medical companies, door to door delivery. I worked at night from because I wanted to avoid traffic. So,
Okay.
all over the city from 8 p.m. to midnight, sometimes 2 a.m., delivering
Okay.
cannabis door to door. And I saw that a lot of women were actually the customers that were
Uh-huh.
ordering it, because there's a lot of women don't usually go to dispensaries. And, fast forward a few years with Prop 64 and the things going into cannabis, that's where I got my start, but that's not really where my passion with the plant began.
Okay.
Um, what I had in my aunt, my mom's only sister, my favorite aunt in the world, she died a few years ago of an opioid overdose. And it's
Okay.
something that, as a family member, you watch, and you try to help, and when they die, you're like, I coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then about a year later, my grandmother, her mom, was prescribed the same drugs that destroyed our
Killed
family
her.
with my aunt. Yeah, the
Yeah.
same opioids. And so I took it upon myself to say, we're not doing this again. After a year of her being on them, my sweet little British grandmother was kind of, she was spitey and mean and wanted her, it just changed her
Change
personality.
personality. Pain will do that, right?
Yes, yes. And,
Pain will do that.
it will
Yeah.
do that. They were prescribed to her because she didn't have any, she was 90 years old. Opioids at 90, that's a great start, right? She didn't have any cartridge left in her hip. And so she was bone on bone, and it was really hurting her. And so that's what they gave her. And she was never really, I guess, a cannabis advocate or against it, but I started buying her candies, like the Swedish fish candies.
Okay. Yeah.
She lived in Colorado. And was and they're cannabis infused. So she had a little sweet tooth. And so I
Did you
started
go
like,
live with her? Tiana, did you go live with her to
well,
take care of
I
her?
did
How did it
live
go?
with her. What happened
Uh-huh.
was my family decided they were my mom and my brother and everybody. My mom was taking care of her at this time. She was living in
Okay.
my mother's house.
All right.
They were going on a vacation to London, which is my grandma was from, for a couple of weeks. So I, who live in California, went to Colorado to stay with my grandmother and care for her for like the 2.5 weeks they were gone.
Okay.
And
All
during
right.
that time, that's when I literally just was like, no.
That can't happen. You said
That can't happen.
no.
So
That
her
that
white pills were I was giving her were now I was not giving her her opioids. I was giving her ibuprofen
uh-huh.
and cannabis. And she had a lot of problems with swelling in her feet and things. And in the 2 weeks, it was the longest 2 weeks of my life. Let me tell you, weaning someone off of opioids is not easy, and they kind of go through withdrawals and a lot of things. And it was a very long. When my family came home, I said, "Don't call me for Christmas. I'm not coming home. I've had enough." Like, it was not easy. But in essence, it did give her a better, longer ending years of her life before she did pass, because she became more into edibles and and getting off of her opioids. So
Yeah. Did she get that personality back that you remembered
a
as your
little bit,
grandma?
yes,
Yeah.
because she was always that literally the epitome of like a little British lady with tea time and cucumber sandwiches, and she was always so caring and giving. Everyone loved my grandmother, and she always kept her accent. She had a little British accent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where my story began, and where a friend of mine had given me a book, because she knew I was really against opioids and what they were doing
I
to
tell
people.
you what, Tiana, we're going to take a break, and I want you
Okay,
to start right there with your friend giving you this book. Okay.
okay,
Then we're going to
absolutely.
take a quick break from Plant Profits. And I'm Vern Davis. I am your host of Plant Profits, and Plant Profits is brought to you by Produce Global. My guest today is Tiana Woodruff, CEO and founder of award-winning brand Queen Mary. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, everyone, to Plant Profits. I'm your host, Vern Davis. My guest today is Tiana Woodruff, CEO and founder of award-winning brand Queen Mary. Now, Tiana, we're continually talking about how you got into the cannabis and the effects of cannabis. And you said you have a friend who gave you a book. Pick it
Yes.
up from there.
Absolutely. So my friend gave me a book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And it was
Okay.
written by Dr. Amen, who happens to be like a psychologist that has rehab centers around the country. And it
Okay.
was just about the effects of opioids and what they do to your body, and how you can offset those by taking natural supplements like
Mm-hmm.
rhodiola, B12, L-theanine, and how you can treat that. And so it really kind of struck a chord in me, in using natural supplements, and I believe in that as well. But if you've been around addicts like I have, like my aunt and my friends, you can treat the symptoms of depression and anxiety and all these different things. But when you're taking drugs, prescription drugs, they also mess with their CB1 receptors, and there's something else that comes with that, along with that addiction happens because you get a very euphoric high that people keep chasing.
Okay.
So that's where I kind of got the idea is, well, what if we took cannabis, which is also known to help with depression and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and it combined it with these natural supplements. And that way your tree actually have a little more control, because we know that plant strains vary and their terpenes and different things that
Mm-hmm.
affect you. You can kind of come up with a formulation that will control that helping of anxiety and depression and sleeplessness and that kind of thing, and still get that euphoric high in a more healthy, structured way that isn't as
Mm-hmm.
addictive. And so that was the basis of Queen Mary, and how we came up with our alternative to addictive prescriptions. And so we infuse those vitamins and adaptogens into our edibles for
Mm-hmm.
a more complete experience.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Um, Now, building your brand. Okay. So when did you make the decision to actually just dive into this?
So when I was delivery driving, actually, I had the
Okay.
idea when I saw in California that Prop 64 was coming up and that people
Yep.
could apply for a license. I
Right.
was like, aha, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start my own delivery service for women, with women drivers. That's how it started. It was actually just going to be a service, Queen Mary.
Okay.
Um, and then as soon as I literally in January of like 2018, after Prop 64 passed or whatever, or it might have been 2019 because it takes another year. I don't even know. The years have flown by. What years?
They really have. Yeah.
But I applied for a license. I literally went to the Department of Cannabis, the DCC website, and then, put in my application, did all the things they said, and they got back
This
to me like
this is through the LA Social Equity Program.
that was before LA Social Equity. This was right when it
Okay.
had started. I
Okay.
didn't even know about LA Social Equity at the time. I just wanted a license. I didn't know
Okay.
anything. I was very
Okay.
green, to say the least. No pun intended. um, however, so the state got back to me and they were like, everything looks good, but where's your license to do business in your city? And I was like, it's right here. Here's my business license. I applied for a business, regular. And they're
Hmm.
like, no, you have to get a regular, like a cannabis license. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that the
Hmm.
DCC in LA was a thing. And so they told me, and I was like, okay. So then I go to the DCC and find out that it is much harder to get a license than the licenses are limited. And I found out about the social equity program. I saw, what the criteria was and that I qualified. And so social equity was this big thing in Los
Yeah,
Angeles. A
it
lot of
was.
people
Yeah.
applied. I had no clue. I really was clueless. I just I did the whole process on my own without the help of an attorney or any kind of consultation. I just went through the
Hmm.
process, filled out the questions to the best of my, knowledge, and I was accepted into the social equity program. I was granted, at the time they had tier 1 and tier 2 access. I was granted both, and they said, "You're social equity, good." I'm like, okay, cool.
So what does that mean, tier 1 and tier 2? So what does that allow you to do?
Yeah, so they've since revamped the program, but individually there was tier 1 and tier 2. So tier 1 social equity meant that you had to have 51% controlling interest in your license and in your business for social equity.
Okay.
And that was granted to people based on certain criteria that they had, on income, zip code, prior arrests, or anything like that. Then they had something called tier 2, which meant that if you qualified under the same criteria, but with at the time, I think it was like 10 years in a certain zip code, but if you were there 5 years, you got tier 2.
Hmm.
And tier 2 was 33%
Hmm.
of social equity license was to you. And that was kind of a protection to keep people from taking away your business,
Okay.
predatory things. They had good intentions. It didn't really work out the way they did. As you know, when people have bad intentions, there's always a loophole. They will
That's
find a
right.
way.
That's right.
Um, so that's what happened. So I was qualified under both tier 1 and tier 2 social equity, were granted the status. And then what they did after that was they opened it up for license applications. They were giving away, 100 licenses. They said you had there was about a 3.5 week period that it was open to apply. The
Okay.
kicker was you had to have a lease on a place in order to apply for a license. And
Wait a
that's where
minute.
they got us.
So if you have more applications than you actually have licenses, that means there's going to be X number of folks that are stuck with a lease that can't be utilized.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
what happened was in the first round, there were 1,600 people that were qualified for social equity. I think
Okay.
800 people applied for the license in the window, and they gave out 100 licenses. And it was done on a first come, first served basis. Now you have to remember, I said I was really green and didn't know anything that was going on. I had no idea that
Right.
when the window opened, 150 people applied in the first 10 minutes. I'm thinking I got 3 weeks. I got to go find, I'm just in my
Yeah.
own little happy, I'm going to do cannabis world. I'm going to go find a lease. I'm going to do all, and that's what I did. And at the 11th hour, literally like the last day, I'm putting in my application with the lease that I finally got on a place in North Hollywood. So I'm so excited. And then I find out, down the road, I had no chance to begin with. The system was set up for me to fail. I did not get a license. I wasn't included in the licenses. I ended up, after not being included in the first round of 100 licenses, the city got audited. I
Hmm.
actually put in for what was called a PCN application, which is a public convenience necessity. It's kind
Okay.
of what liquor stores have to do. You go to city council when you go into a neighborhood that has undue concentration, and you make your plea to have a dispensary. So I
Hmm.
had gotten a partner on my own at that point, and this was like 6 months later. Um, had gotten another lease on the west side, actually in
Okay.
Brentwood, like the most prestigious
So,
area in Los Angeles.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and was so excited. And
That's
then,
perfect. Yeah,
right,
right. That's
but
what
then
you're thinking.
everything came crashing down. We had the recall in Los Angeles with the DCR. I mean, like the whole audit that happened.
Hmm.
Then our mayor got recalled, and so did the city councilman on the west side that was approving my application. Um, in the 11th district. So what happened was there were 3 licenses that were supposed to go to to be approved, and he let them go because he was busy dealing with. So the way they had set it up is if you go for a PCN, you pay a fee of like $5,000 for the application. You have 90 days to get city council to approve your license. If they don't, or if this is during COVID, by the way, let me say, when they're not even hardly meeting, if they don't even meet or do anything, you still didn't. It was null and void. So it was a risk beginning with. So we ended up losing that, didn't get the
Mm-hmm.
West Side application, lost my business partners at the time, lost a ton of money on the
Mm-hmm.
rent, like $50,000. I
Oh,
mean, it just was crazy. And then
wow.
I came across this wonderful group because I was on the internet and dealing with people and learning about social equity and kind of building my network, called Our Academy, Our Dream, which is a nonprofit group that did like it was doing a 20-week, I guess a cohort, like I think to teach you about social equity, teach you
Like an
all the things about
incubation?
in incubation. Yes, yeah, like
Yes.
a class.
Uh-huh.
We met twice a week for like 15 weeks. And
Okay.
so I joined that. And once I joined that, it really changed everything for me. And it opened my eyes, and I learned so much about the business. And I started Queen Mary, the brand,
Okay.
which is how that came into fruition. I was like, okay, I found out that I didn't need a license to start a brand. So I did that. I, went through and had all this paperwork, a business plan, did all this. And then,
Right.
at the end, I had this wonderful plan and no money. But what I was lucky enough to do is because of the cohort that I was in, I applied. There was a company out here that was giving away a $10,000 grants to social equity people. You didn't have to have a business. They just wanted to see what your business plan was, what you were doing. So I
Okay.
applied and I won. So in 2021,
Right.
after all these couple of years had passed, I received a $10,000 grant from this company. I literally took that $10,000 and just went right into production
The brand.
of the brand. I started with 2 gummies, my day and my night, and I just did as much as I could afford. And I found a manufacturer and a distribution partner. I did I had nobody to do sales or anything. My
No.
distro had happened to own, a storefront, and they said, we don't do sales, we just do straight distro. However, we will put your product in our store. So that was my first store. It
That
was the
was
Growth
your first
Collective.
store. I tell you what, I want to get into Queen Mary, the brand and the
Yes.
business. Okay, when we come back, because that's quite interesting. You could have taken that $70,000 you spent maybe and just started building Queen Mary. Uh, that's interesting. Revelation there. I'm Vern Davis. I'm your host of Plant Profits, and Plant Profits is brought to you by Produce Global. My guest today is Tiana Woodruff, CEO and founder of award-winning brand Queen Mary. We'll see you on the other side. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Plant Profits. I'm Vern Davis, your host. Plant Profits is brought to you by Produce Global. And my guest today is Tiana Woodruff, CEO and founder of award-winning brand Queen Mary. And we just got into, Tiana has just begun to make the product, and she's created a brand, and she's finding ways to get it in distribution. And she found her distributor had her storefront. She's gotten a little distribution there, display action there. So take it from there. And I really want to know what makes your brand unique, and why did you do it the way you did it? Because it is healthy, very healthy wellness product. So
Yes,
yeah, so take us through that whole part of your
absolutely.
story.
So, when I started, I was like, the plan of Queen Mary, I had thought of, I want to do pre-rolls, I'm going to do a wine, I'm going to have a vape, and I'm going to have like gummies. Well,
Okay,
obviously I didn't have the budget for that. So I had to really think about where I was going to start. And I started with the gummies because it was an edible, and I was able to do the adaptogens and the things and incorporate what I really wanted to do
okay,
with the brand. So that's what I started with. And I did the Enchanted and the Moonstruck, the day and the night gummy. I have the rhodiola and the B12 and the CBN and all the things that make Queen Mary what it is. And I
mm-hmm.
sat down and I wrote out like, okay, what is it that I want from this product? What am I trying to do? And what message do I want to portray? And so I came up with, Queen Mary, a fixin' for a vixen, because I'm a woman and I wanted to really market to women and women only. And people thought that
Okay,
was risky in the cannabis industry because it's mostly male dominated. But I knew as a delivery driver, women were using cannabis,
that's right.
we were there. We just had to be more tapped into as a market. And so that's how I got my start in kind of what I was working on. But so I became a wellness brand, and it became like all
Right.
about And this is before people started talking about terpenes, which has all come
Hmm.
up in the last year, and like all the different cannabinoids and
Hmm.
different things that kind of like most brands. I looked at what was out there. I did a lot of R&D. I
Okay.
bought every gummy that was on the shelf that I could, trying them out, seeing what the effect was, taking notes. It was a process. It took me a few
Okay.
months. And
Okay.
then when I came up with creating my own gummies, I would do blind tests with my friends and give them a bag and like not tell them what's in it and just say take like they were different numbered and tell me what the effect was and what they preferred. And my gummies were always everyone's favorite, which made me happy without
Yeah.
knowing whether it was somebody else's or a competitor's. They're just gummies in a bag, in like a little, baggie. So I went ahead and pushed forward with that. And when I finally got to the right formulation and what the effect I wanted to be for my gummies, there's a lot of, I guess, recreational use of cannabis. There's always the culture, the behind it, whether it's hip hop or jazz and stuff. But there's also the medicinal part, and that was what my
Absolutely.
choice was to go into the medicinal line. There was a lot of brands out there doing different things, but my message was very clear. A natural alternative to addictive prescriptions, and it really did me well because stores listened when I was going in. They're like, everyone's
Hmm.
got gummies here. We've never heard of you. Who are you? And it was like I had to sell myself and sell my story and sell what my
Hmm.
product was about. And I slowly started one by one gaining stores and then having to support them and, do display like what they call PADs, patient day, just demo days and
Hmm.
talking to the community. And I just started doing more and more events and setting up a table and educating the public and educating people more and more about the health benefits of cannabis and what my product was about and what it did and getting people to try it. And the feedback was phenomenal. And so that's kind of how I got here. And, with the Emerald Cup that I won here in California,
Yeah.
I had only been in business for a couple of months. I was in two stores at the time.
Now,
No one
when
knew
was
Queen
that?
Mary was.
When did you actually win that award?
I won the award in May
Yeah.
of 2022, but
And
you had to
your
submit your
brand had
product.
just, go ahead.
Yeah, but you had to submit your products by February like 13th. So they had them for a
Wow.
long, like way in
Okay.
advance. And it was my
Okay.
first run.
Okay.
No one had heard of me. That's why I just submitted it because someone said you should try, and I was like, okay, I'll submit to this. And then it was crazy because I won. And it was, a long story short, I was, wow, it was an honor to be humbled to
Mhm.
be recognized by, the people up north in Humboldt County, which are like, the
That's like, ah,
yeah,
yeah,
like it's the cannabis place to be.
yeah.
And the fact that I'm unheard of, no, I was in no stores and they're just trying my stuff said a lot to me. And I had to explain to people like I won based on product only. There was no marketing behind it. There was no we've heard of this brand or anything. It was just another, and gummies are a big competitive market,
Oh, it's
just
huge.
behind pre-rolls there's
Yeah.
so many brands, it's
Yeah.
insane. And we've been doing well here in our small footprint in California, and the
Tell
stores are
tell us
pretty.
about that. Tell us about your penetration into the consumer marketplace and where that's going and how you're doing it and what the plans are.
Absolutely. I, was going to stores by, just walking in.
Right.
Hi, I'm a brand, can I bring you samples? And there's a lot of regulations behind sampling. I can't just take samples of my product into a store. It has to go through the metric system, which is all tracked and traced. So I have to like
Yeah.
talk to them and then agree to have my trucks come, and I pay for this without them even buying, like deliver samples to your store. And then I have to
Hmm.
follow up and say, did you get the samples? Did you like them? Can I get you to order? Like it's a process. And buyers here are not eager to talk to new brands, and they're not eager to try new things. It is not easy. They are very inundated with a lot of products. There's a lot of overkill. Shelves are overstocked, and
Hmm.
products that they're trying to sell the stuff that's in their store, not bring new stuff in. So it's a
Yeah.
very big challenge to get shelf space in California, especially.
Yeah.
And I paved the way by doing something different and telling my story, and people
Okay.
connected with that. They connected with me.
Okay.
And so that's something that I've been known for in this industry, is that my voice. I used my voice. I made a place for Queen Mary, and I made a story and something people could like follow and understand and people believe in. And when your products back up what you're saying, and not only was I telling the truth, but my products were the same. My profit margins are very slim because of what I choose to do with my product. A lot of companies don't have the full spectrum rosin. They use
Let's
typical.
talk about that. What should consumers, other brands, folks like me and investors, anyone, what should they know about Queen Mary that sets it apart from other edibles, and why you're winning the awards, and what the pure cannabis lovers really like about what you bring to the table?
Absolutely. So one thing about our products is consistency and quality are the two biggest things I am adamant about.
Okay.
Every batch be the same and the quality be where it needs to be. If I stamp a guarantee on it, like when I'm at festivals or something, and especially if you're able to sell some festivals, you can sell direct to consumer, and people
Yeah.
look at me and I say, if you buy this gummy and you don't like it, find me and email me. I'll refund your money personally. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody has ever taken me up on that. Everyone comes back and is like, where can I get more?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think what steps us out is, is the fact that our gummies are fast acting, they're full spectrum rosin,
Mm-hmm.
they're vegan. I don't add any like additive sugars or anything like that. We use monk fruit to sweeten. Um, and no artificial colorings. Like both my gummies look pretty much the same. If you didn't have them in the packaging, you don't know which is which until you bite
Okay.
into it. And we
Okay.
use all natural flavors. And what's great about it is a lot of edibles, people have like there's a stigma against edibles. Like you take them, you forget about it. 2 hours later, you're a little high, and then you have this stepping stone effect where you get
Yeah.
higher and higher, and then you're like, and you crash. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what's great about our gummies is you don't have that because they're fast acting, and we use rosin and it's full spectrum, which means we don't strip the plant just for the THC. We keep all the terpenes and everything intact into the plant as much as
Right.
possible. So when you get that high, and it usually takes about 15 or 20 minutes, it hits you, you're high, and that's where you stay. And then it
Mm.
dissipates over a few hours without that crash. And so it's very easy to microdose if you need to know where you are, because you'll know in 15 minutes, I'm good. I'm happy. I have
Uh-huh.
that little euphoric high. Or if you want to get higher, you have a little more. And then, so it's really good for what I say, the canna curious and the canna serious.
Okay.
That is the point of our products.
Okay. No, that's great. And tell me about market penetration, right? Where you're in California,
Yes.
all right, and any other markets?
Absolutely. Yes, I'm actually expanding right now as we speak.
Okay.
I'm working with a manufacturer in Colorado. So
Okay.
I will be on shelves hopefully by mid-January in Colorado and in New Mexico as well. And
Okay.
then we are also going into Arizona, hopefully by the end of like February at the latest. So
Yeah.
I'm working on expanding into 3 states right now, and
Yeah.
it's insane. We're not doing, people tend to think that, you get a licensing deal and you kind of sell your brand name. People will make it in their state and pay you a fee like we're Pepsi or Nike.
Mm.
That's not the case. That's not cannabis. So I've literally had to do what I'm doing in California in each state, which is
I
find a
know.
manufacturer who's going to produce, work under their license, and market out to the stores. And I have great partners. I'm going to be in 30 stores in Colorado, another 30 locations in New Mexico. So
Mm-hmm.
we're coming out strong out the gate. Unlike in California, where I started with one and then two. And then
Yeah.
after like 6 months, I was in 12. And now I'm in
Yeah.
like 25 or 30 stores and a couple delivery services. I
Okay.
am coming in a lot stronger in these other markets.
Why
They
is
are
that? Why is that?
um, I'm an award-winning brand and I have a little more recognition. I've actually
Uh-huh.
met people along the way that support my brand, and they're bigger companies that are wanting to work with me and put me in their stores,
Mm-hmm.
that are like basically what we call MSOs, multi-state operators.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that's a deal that I have going with buying, raw ingredients and going out into their stores, with marketing. So I'm real excited
Mm-hmm.
about that. So I'm not really starting from the ground up. I have stores already ready to put me on their shelves. So I'm real
Right.
excited about that.
Now, are you marketing this brand as a female brand, a woman brand, or are you
I
marketing it as a community brand?
I market as a female brand, but however, I've had, I have a good friend that is ex-military and he lives it for PTSD. I always
Yeah,
say, men, anything that's for a woman, a man can do too, right? We say the same
yeah.
thing on the other side. But when marketing is, you can't just market to everybody. You have to find your niche. You got to know what if you market, if you say your consumer base is all cannabis users, you're not going to get anywhere. I have managed
Very
to
true.
be very focused in my marketing and
Right.
very
Right.
concentrated and showing up at events and, Queen Mary, Fixin' for Vixen, women, helping mostly women that are stay-at-home moms that
Hmm.
are, young professionals or women that do both, that have to take care of kids, single moms, and have to go to work. And there's a lot of stress and anxiety, and people are taking meds like crazy right now. Then the pandemic happened, which really affected people's mental health. Like people are really still struggling and they're looking for something, to help them. And I'm hoping that Queen Mary, I'm trying to position it as an alternative to going and taking these addictive medications that are destroying families.
Hmm.
Something a little easier, something you could control and have a part of. So that's been the message with Queen Mary. I do, market towards women and try to be very targeted. But of course, anybody can use us. If we can help you, that's what we're
Right.
here for.
Right. No, that's great. That is good. Are you active in the political scene of cannabis?
A little bit. I always have
Okay.
something to say. I do a lot of panels
Okay.
around in different conferences and stuff. I would like to be more active. I'm actually just got nominated to be, we'll see, on the board of NCIA, which is the National Cannabis Association.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that I get on the board for that because I think it would mean a lot to me and there's a lot of advocacy I can do.
Yeah.
My thing is to help families that are left behind in the cannabis. A lot of people, there's organizations like 40 tons that they help families too, but they're helping incarcerated people or,
Right.
the people that are trying to get out of jail because we're making money off a plant and people are still sitting in jail for it. But besides
Absolutely.
that, I'm about the mothers and the children that are left behind for
Yes.
the fathers that are in jail and women that became addicted to drugs or something, families were separated. I happen to be a foster mom here in Los Angeles and
Okay.
know that um, children of color are taken from their home at 5 times the rate of white children, and
Hmm.
but yet most foster parents are white. So people were causing trauma to those kids in the fact that we're removing them from what they know and putting them in an area with people that don't understand their culture, their background, or and it's we're creating generational trauma, and we don't.
Hmm.
We're trying to do better and we're not we're not necessarily making their lives better. So I'm a big advocate in that. I'm really happy that Governor Newsom signed the thing in California about how cannabis is no longer a reason to remove kids from the home. That is huge.
Yeah.
Cannabis use. I think, alcoholism and other things are reasons, but cannabis doesn't cause you to be mean or evil or do things that other things make you do. So yes, I would like to get more involved in politics. I have a lot to say.
Right.
I think I'm very persuasive. I'm finding my path as I'm working through it.
That is great. What does the company look like? How many people involved in Queen Mary?
It's like I'm ashamed to say this, and yet I think I should be proud. It is me, 100% me. I do my
Wow.
marketing, I do my accounts receivable, I
Uh-huh.
do all my sales, I do all my connections. And it's like I literally put in like 15 to 18-hour days, 7 days a week, just so people understand this isn't easy. It is, that's what it takes. It really takes a
Right.
full on commitment. I'm blessed enough that I'm married, that my husband has a decent job, and we're living off one income because I haven't paid myself. Like my company, all the money it makes, it goes right back into the company. Like
Right.
I don't I would love to hire people, but I don't have the capacity. I don't have the cash flow. And that's part of the problem in this industry. It's, we don't have access to safe banking. We
Right.
don't have, as a woman of color, it's so impossible to almost raise capital, especially in cannabis right now. I have a lot of people always watching me. I've talked to many, investors that they all got their eye on me and they all want to watch, but
Hmm.
no one's opened their pocketbook quite yet. I
Right.
did actually, I'm lying. I did have an angel investor recently give me $100,000. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Which is what is funding my expansion
Expansion.
into the
Yes.
states.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that. They made that very possible for me. But it's been a long haul, and I do have some people, that I contract out, like, that I'll pay Venmo,
Yeah.
like to do events sometimes if I can't be in two places at once, and a lot of events happen. So I have what I call like brand ambassadors that I'll pay that will be at
Right.
events for me, or I have someone that does like design work because I'm not do it all. So I'm not a computer person. I have,
Unbelievable.
so little people that I pay certain things, but actual employees, I don't have any yet. I'm hoping to grow into that and to grow into a bigger company. But right now, I own 100% of Queen Mary, which someone just told me at the BizCon. And,
Yeah.
we tend to not as women or as people be proud of what we do. I'm very humble and, and I know things are happening, but someone said to me, so you've managed to take in like 5% of the market share in California, and you're expanding into 3 states, all without any backing or
Right.
funding. You did it on 10K. Yes. And I'm like, uh-huh. And they're like, that's remarkable. Like,
It
are
is
you
remarkable.
you need to like let people know. And I was like, I guess. Like, I'm just so busy
That
working. I don't think
that
about
that
what
is that
accomplishment is.
that is remarkable that you've done that with such minimum uh, external outside investment into your business. And so, I mean, this question I have to ask is, how are you going to get more money?
How am I going
Right.
to do?
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's
Yes.
mostly about, I'm going to put, with this expansion, you get money by people looking at all people care about is the bottom line. How much money in sales do you have? What's your
Yeah.
overhead? What's your cost? And, when I was talking to investors before, like 6 months ago, I realized though I'm doing well, I wasn't ready for investors really because a
Okay.
lot of things they ask for. I was like, "What's a performa? What do you
Yeah.
mean? Like, I have money here. Like, I don't know. Like all these different things that businesses should have." I was like, "I'm just doing it. I don't know what to tell you."
Right.
So I think what part of growing money is with this expansion, and I'm working with another company like doing digital displays and getting my own data because data is very important to know what your sales are, who your customer base is, and this is stuff that you don't get from dispensaries. So I'm having to make deals and like being able to find that out and like
Hmm.
knowing like in certain locations, am I the number one, number two selling gummy in your store? How many
Yeah.
products, and not just based on the sales, I like really know that kind of information. And so I've been building that and making that
Okay.
path. And I think over the next 6 months, I'll be in a position where people will start coming to Queen Mary and want to invest because of what we're doing and how I've managed to build it. We have low overhead because, I'm unlicensed and I work on other people's licenses and we're
Hmm.
expanding and, but I own my business. I own, we work on everything. And so that's the growth path of that. So I see it coming. And if not, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'll find
Well,
where
it's
there's a will,
working.
there's a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you keep that belief, Tiana. It is working, and it will work. And the key thing is you're creating an amazing product
Thank you.
that you can't forget, and consumers will always look for you if they like it, right?
Absolutely.
And
And
they'll
that's the
always look
future.
for you.
Like right now, I have my mental health line, which is the tincture and the 2 gummies. I market it as a daily cannabis regimen. That's another thing I'm
Okay.
doing that no one knows about is like the tincture in the morning, the maintenance gummy in the day, and then the
Mhm.
sleep aid gummy at night. So it's a 3-step process, easy as 1, 2, 3. And it's all
Nice.
about mental health. And then my next line coming out will be about I'm going to do a physical health, which is more like an immunity and a multivitamin and kind of things
Hmm.
that help your body that you need more vitamins
Hmm.
along with your cannabis. So I'll have the physical and mental health lines. So that's where I'm going with Queen Mary.
Oh, that's great. You got it right here on Plant Profits. You got it directly from Tiana Woodruff, CEO and founder of award-winning brand Queen Mary. Tiana, thank you for appearing on our show today at Plant Profits. And hey, when important things happen in the journey of Queen Mary, please come back to Plant Profits and share
Absolutely.
it with the audience. We'd love to be that for you as we do for the
Absolutely.
guest of our show. So really, really appreciate that. I'm Vern Davis. I am the host of Plant Profits. And again, I said my guest today was Tiana Woodruff, CEO and founder of award-winning brand, the Queen Mary. I want to thank you all for joining us today on the show. And I want you to go out and look for this episode, of course, and all other past episodes of Plant Profits. And you can start with cannabisradio.com. That's our partner in this venture. And we love the relationship we have with them. And when you go there, right, give us a 5-star rating. Give us a positive review. Say something about the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us in anywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon Music, Audible, etc. Anywhere you get your podcast, please listen to and download Plant Profits. And then Produce Global, my company, follow us. And you can follow us on all social media outlets: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And finally, learn more about how we're building companies, how we're changing people's lives in this industry. That's Protis Global, Protis global.com. Until next time, cheers.